9 out of 10 is great as long as that one thing that isn't there isn't a mission critical thing. Business is messy and unpredictable.
Sometimes lonely.
So lonely.
So lonely.
And inspiration can often come from really weird places.
We pick up where the bullet point blogs and the highlight reels leave off.
We start with the stories. Welcome back to So Here's My Story. I'm Jody.
And I'm confused. I'm also Elliot, but I just wanted to go on record saying right now that I'm confused.
Why are you confused?
You can continue with the introduction.
Well, it's been forever since we've done an introduction. We used to do them every single week, and we haven't done anybody. Is that what you're referring? Is the reason we're doing an introduction is why you are mentioning your confusion?
Yes, I'm confused because of our stats, of our download stats.
Yeah. So we've been surging, I guess I'll call it. And I don't even think that's being boastful. We've been having like record numbers of, I'm assuming new listeners. I don't know. We're trying to figure it out, but,
well, what Libsyn calls unique downloads.
Right.
And
I've doubled, if not tripled in the last.
Tripled. And on random days, not just episode days like Tuesdays, but random days.
Well, so point being, we did not want to miss this opportunity to welcome all of you, everyone who's hopping on. We are really trying to figure out where you came from and how you found us, and that would be super helpful to know. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You can email us at talktous@sohere'smystory.com, or even better, hop into the Facebook group, which you can find links to at our website, sohere'smystory.com, or via Facebook. If you find our Facebook page, there's a link right there into the group. So join the group, come in, talk to the listeners who are already there, or you can actually text us at our text or call us at our Google number that's on the website. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
We're that prepared.
But it is right at the top of the website at sohere'smystory.com. You can text us at that number and we will text you right back. So we hope to hear from you, but regardless, welcome. So here's my story. I don't remember if I mentioned this before, but here in our quarantine summer, and we've been pretty much in our house since the beginning of March with some very limited other things, but I decided that we needed a little bit of a break, that we needed to do something else, somewhere else, not here, even if it's this someplace else, just a change of scenery to what I was doing, because I do think we're going to be here a lot this fall. And while I love my house, I think I need to see another place for a while. So I had booked us a place in upstate New York, and then that went sideways when New York added Maryland to the do not travel list, or the do not come here list without quarantining. So that didn't work out. And that's not what my story is about. So I have been scrambling to find another place for next week that we could go that was in an area that I felt was kind of safe and, wasn't a hot spot, where we'd be kind of secluded and we could but something that was like a little bit interesting, a little bit fun. And this is where I encountered a part of me that I both love and despise, and sometimes regret, which is this like, I didn't make up this word, but I think it probably is a good word. This like maximizer side of my personality that like wants to make things the best. It's different from being a perfectionist. It's not about getting something perfect. It's just, it often shows up when it's things that are for like experiences that I really want to be meaningful or special or something. So as you can imagine, a week out, the little cabins, like the cutest, coolest, most interesting ones aren't available. So there was like a limited supply. Yeah. And I spent many hours this past Saturday. We had found one that I thought was pretty cool, but it was missing like one thing that I felt was kind of important. And enough that I said to my husband, like, I'm going to look around. I'm just going to see if there's something else. This is pretty perfect. It's available for like days before and after where we want to go. So even if we had to shift it, it'll still be fine. I'm not super worried about that. Like we'll come back and get this one, but I want to look around. So I look around and I come up with all these options. And so he and I sit down, we go through them all, and we end up coming back to this original one. I'm like, okay, I feel good. We've exhausted the like other things. I'm going to go book it. I go to book it and it is booked completely. All the days are gone. And we have just, mind you, sat and ruled out all the other things I had pulled up for one reason or another, that they were not as good. And so now that part of my brain that was trying to maximize things is really disappointed now, because that one was already like a 9 out of a 10. And now at best I have like a 7 out of a 10. And I actually had to walk away from it for a little while, because it is this place where this like indecision to actually pull the trigger at the last, to be like, yes, that's the one. I'm really good at like classifying data and like categorizing it and sort of like I'm good at narrowing things down. But when it comes to actually deciding, I am bad. And I often like put it off. And then sometimes I end up regretting it because I didn't just make a decision. And so a conversation about indecision and second guessing, I thought was maybe a good one to put on the table.
Well, I will tell you,
in fresh, raw regret.
I'll tell you, first of all, that not a day goes by where I don't thank God for my wife's ability to settle for a 7 out of 10. I'm immensely grateful.
Fair point.
And when I say 7, I'm going back to my 20s. I'm being generous. But no, I remember a conversation I had with this lawyer that I worked with. And one of the reasons I remember her telling me this fable is because she's from the Dominican Republic. And so I love the accent, like this kind of Jamaican accent that she had. Anyway.
Are you going to try to do the accent? Because I'm
not.
Thinking you shouldn't. Okay.
I'm not. No. But she said of somebody that he's like, how does it, like the dog with the bone on the bridge. I was like, what is the dog with the bone on the bridge? She said, well, the dog is carrying the bone and it's a really nice, thick, meaty bone and he loves it and he's very happy with himself. And he crosses this bridge. And as he's going over the bridge, he looks down in the water and he sees a dog that looks just like him with an even better bone. So he opens his mouth to get that better bone. And of course, he loses the one he was carrying.
Yeah.
And I've thought about that often. I think it might be an Aesop fable.
Sure.
But I see that in business with interviewing candidates. I see it with accepting projects. And where I see it, the common denominator is, at least in those areas where I've seen it, is often people don't figure out their real priority in terms of what they need as opposed to what they want. Like in business, they really need somebody to check all of these boxes. And this person comes in and she checks all of these boxes, but they're like, hey, wouldn't it be great if, in addition to graphic design, she also could do landscaping?
Right.
And so they hold out for this landscape or graphic design person who never materializes. And so they wind up with all these unmet needs that they could have had. But,
yes. Yeah. This is really helpful. I wish I'd talked to you Friday because we skipped this. This is like therapy for me. This is really helpful. We skipped the step because part of the confusion and part of the reason that I get really frustrated for myself is I literally help people make decisions. That is what I do all day long. I am good at sorting through things and seeing the clear path forward.
Yes, and then for fun, your band is called the Wafflers. That
is true. That is true. Because, and here's the difference. The step that I skipped, that this has never occurred to me until, that's what I was saying. This is truly like cathartically important for me. Cathartic's the wrong word there. Profoundly important for me. We did not do the thing that I always make sure to make people do, which is that like, which of these things is most important? Like we didn't prioritize that. And once we did, we actually did that on Sunday. What do we matter? Like the thing we decided mattered most was that we were able to get away for a place for like 5 days. And that was definitely one of the limiters. There were tons of super cute, adorable, interesting, good location, all the other check boxes, places, but they were only available 3 days here or 3 or 4 days there. And that didn't feel right. We knew we wanted to get away for a little while. Had I just made it clear that the priority was places that were available for 5 days, and then only looked at those. Because where I get confused about why I get into this, it's because I'm not I don't have these like crazy high standards. I'll only go to a place that's fancy and has this and da, da, da. It's,
Right.
I'm super flexible about what I find interesting. I do want it to have something that the kids might be like, oh, check this out. This is cool. You know, I'd rather not just be in a blah-tastic tan beige condo room, especially because apparently it's going to rain on the entire East Coast for the whole week that we are gone. There's no place we can drive to where it won't be raining for like 7 solid days. So
Right.
it does have to have some amount of, we're going to be in here a lot. So it has to be kind of cozy. Had we prioritized that, it would have made the process so much better, because I was going around collecting all these places that had some days available, and then we were going down and digging in. So that prioritization piece, I think, is important, because, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, that 9 out of 10 is such a misleading ruler for things, because if that 9 out of 10 is great, and you can say, I mean, I see this with dating and with employees and with all sorts of things. 9 out of 10 is great as long as that one thing that isn't there isn't a mission critical thing. Because if it is, it doesn't matter that it's a 9 out of 10. Like, you'd be better off with a different 8 out of 10 if that mission critical thing, or a 7 out of 10 if the mission critical thing is in there. And I don't know if I've told the story, but I was working with a friend / client one time. I was thinking of leaving her job, and we just made this little spreadsheet of like the things that really mattered to her. And we marked off the ones that were deal breakers. And one of them, deal breaker one, was she didn't want a big commute, because the whole reason she was leaving this job was to be around for her kids as they were getting off the bus. She wanted to be home in like the late afternoon with her younger children. And lo and behold, even I forgot that was that big of a deal until we pulled out the spreadsheet, because she got offered this job that was just every other thing that we had put on the list. It was like a 12 out of 10 of like, it was more pay, more interesting, more of the things that she wanted to do. I mean, every other thing, and knocked it out of the ballpark. But it was in DC, which, if you're not from this area, while Baltimore and DC are only like 40 miles apart, like maybe even less. I don't know, from line to line, not a lot. As the crow flies, it's not far, but it can easily be a 3-hour drive sometimes.
Or trains or whatever. And, it's funny, because before you said the word, I literally wrote down on my pad, deal breaker.
Yep.
Because when we were talking about the priorities, well, we are going to be in here, it's going to rain, so we have to be cozy, we have to have 5 days, and those are the things you absolutely need to have.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find that people forget often to do is to list the other side of that, which are the things that you absolutely cannot. And if it's a relationship and you say, well, this person is great and she checks all the boxes for me, but she absolutely does not want to have children, and children are really important to me, or whatever. So you have the deal breakers on that side, the must-haves, and then there's that gray area of, hey, this would be nice. It would be nice to have an wow factor in where you're staying, or it would be nice if the graphic designer could do landscaping, but we could live without it, or we could train.
Yeah, no, I think that needs versus wants, and then also the deal breakers it makes everything so much more clear. And I find that it's the wants that cause all the problems. That's what keeps you attached to a job or a relationship. I have this running joke that when somebody, usually it's a friend, because I'm not a career counselor, so I don't do this work as a job that much. But when somebody's talking to me about a position, and I'm already picking up that every vibe they're giving off around it has some kind of low energy around it. They're not talking about how much they love the company or whatever. And also, I'll already be suspicious that the gum has lost its flavor for them and they're ready to leave. They're just not ready to admit that they want to leave. And then they will say the magic word that tells me, to me, it's just like this last vestige of this little tiny thread that keeps someone attached. They'll say, but I have so much flexibility here. And when I hear that word, when that is the thing that they put up as the why they should stay, and don't get me wrong, I value flexibility at a very high level. For me, it's probably a need even more than possibly even a deal breaker. So I value flexibility. But when it is the thing, because flexibility can be found in lots of different places.
Yes.
You can create your own flexibility. You can negotiate flexibility. It doesn't exist in one place. So when that's what they bring up, I know that if that's the only tether that's still keeping them kind of attached, that they are done and it is time to go.
And I often think that the deal breakers are easier to come up with. I mean, a
Yeah.
number of years ago, I got an offer from a larger firm to buy my firm. And I really had no real interest in doing that, but I was interested in the conversation. I wanted to know what their thoughts were because I wanted to know what they thought it was worth and all, and what goes into that consideration. Because law firms are different kind of assets to buy than other companies. But one of the things that they said was, well, after we buy the firm, we're going to need you to stay on for 5 years, and we do have, billable hour thresholds. And I was like, and done.
And scene.
Because that was, before I even get to all of the reasons, flexibility, by the way, being one of them, but before I get to all of the reasons why I wouldn't want to sell, and I really can't ever envision doing that. One of the things was, I don't want to live by the billable hour, but for whatever reason, that was just a deal breaker for me.
Right.
I'm not going to cast aspersions on people that do, and that's how a lot of firms are set up. But it wasn't even so much that I had on the other side of the ledger a magic number. Gee, if they offer me X, then I'll really think about it. It was the deal breakers that made the decision. There was no way that I was going to reconcile that with how I wanted to be.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is helpful or if it's just kind of where but I noticed, because I thought a lot about this on Saturday. I was really, really mad at myself on Saturday because I couldn't find, at that point, I went back and scanned everything and I'm like, oh, now we sat down and looked at it. Getting away for a chunk of time is what we really need. That's the whole reason we're doing this, is to really reset ourselves and get away. And so I spent a lot of time sort of noticing, where did I, because I navigate by regrets. This is just something I'm kind of noticing lately. I try to think of what will I regret, because I often would regret not doing something or not saying something or not sharing something or whatever, than I do doing it, because, then you can navigate from there. And so I'm always just looking what will I regret here? And, there was a muddle of that one thing I held on for. Rose, I'm like, I'd regret if we can't we get there and then everyone's having a bad time because there's, not a covered front porch or whatever it was. I can't even, that's the worst part. I can't even remember what the variable was that made me say, I'm going to go keep looking. So it clearly wasn't the thing that mattered. And so I think it's the wants that get into that regrets. Whereas if we had sat down and made some clear priorities about what we really care about most, and then what makes for a great, the kind of experience that we're wanting to have, and prioritize them, I think decisions would be so much easier. And the reason we're called the Wafflers, and the reason that there is a line in the Care and Feeding of Jody Hume of don't ask me where I want to go, don't make me choose where we go to eat or those things, is because those are times where I don't have strong opinions. The Wafflers, we waffle about what song to play, because there's no song we play that I don't love. So when it comes to what to play, we're like, oh my gosh, I could play, ask for us for what you want, because I love all of them. So I can't decide. Restaurants, there's very few restaurants I'd be like, I don't want to go there. And if I have a hankering for Thai, I'll say that. But if I don't, did I just say have a hankering?
You did. I think that was the West Virginia in you coming out.
Wow, I have a hankering.
I reckon you did.
Hey, I can make West Virginia jokes. You cannot make West Virginia jokes. If I have a hankering for Thai, that's just that's my two parts of my life made into one sentence, a hankering for Thai. Then I'll say that. But in lieu of me having a strong opinion of where I want to eat, I become paralyzingly indecisive because I don't have those I don't have anything to decide by. And so it feels like this wide open space. But this exercise that I'm sort of writing down here from our conversation, this prioritization exercise, when you can put guardrails around the decision or cornerstones around what you care about and what's a need and what's a deal breaker and what's just a want, then narrows down that field and may save me from.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's the quadrant. The quadrant is the need to haves, the deal breakers, the things that you could go either way on, the wafflers, and then the hankerings. I think that's really where we came to. I think it's those four things.
Yeah.
Must-haves, deal breakers, waffling, hankerings.
Done.
Done.
So that's our story.
But the discussion doesn't have to end here.
No, it does not.
In fact, we don't want it to.
No, we don't.
That is why we actually have our private Facebook group,
which we started to make sure that we could get your comments, your rants, your thoughts,
your stories. You can find links to that group as well as show notes and links to subscribe via email and how to find us just about anywhere you can possibly find podcasts at sohere'smystory.com.
And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at SHMS Podcast.
And since we know it takes a village.
Yes, it does.
We'd like to thank our village, our super talented, incredibly patient team.
And occasionally snarky team.
Yeah, but in the best of ways.
In the best
Lovingly
of ways.
Snarky.
Yes.
Good mockery.
So a huge shout out to the people who actually help us produce our show. First, our sound engineer, Tom Hansen.
Thanks to Christy Schmier for our brilliant show notes and all the other fantastic writing she does for us.
And to Taylor Mathauer for doing just a little bit of everything.
Including wrangling us. Which is no small feat.
No, it's not.
This is Jody Hume.
And I'm Elliot Wagenheim.
And you've been listening to So Here's My Story.